So you got yourself a new frame. You're excited to build it up. But what handlebars do you use? Making the right handlebar choice can make or break your bike. Almost literally in some cases. But what you risk most is the ridicule of your friends in choosing the wrong handlebar. So today, let's talk about how to choose the right handlebar for you and your bicycle.
Oh yeah!
First, let's talk about considerations, sizing, and shape. As a base, start with where your collarbone ends. You take that and imagine that your hands are straight. They're going to run right into the end of your collarbone, right? So you can take that measurement and say, oh, I'm about 43 centimeters. Find a bar. This feels about right. Okay. But maybe it's not right. Maybe it feels too wide for you. You want to go a little bit narrower. Well, now you at least have a base from which you can start. So if you're completely clueless out there, this is a good place to start as far as the size of bar goes. Factors that may affect this: maybe you want a bar that is a little bit more race oriented. So you want to go more narrow. Go more narrow. Let's say you're doing more off-road riding, and so you want a wider bar for better handling. Go a little bit wider. Something to note is not all bars are measured the same. Some companies measure center to center at the drop. Some companies measure center to center at the hood. Some companies, depending on the bar, will actually measure at the initial bend. For example, these Evo curves, our neoclassics, are all measured center to center at the hood. However, something like our VentureMax XL is actually measured center to center at the initial bend. So that means that at the drop, what would be a 52 by the hood is actually going to be more like a 56 to 60 in the drop. Holy moly, that's a wide bar. A bar this wide would be ideal for something like bike packing or more technical off-road riding. All right, so we know about what size bar we want. How do we know what shape bar we want? Unfortunately, that's usually personal preference. You could argue the benefits of a compact drop, a bio bend, or even a traditional bend all day long. More likely than not, it's going to be personal preference. If you spend a lot of times in the drops and you want something that has a little bit more smooth transition, get a compact bend. If you're in the drops in a fixed location, you know you're always going to be at the end of the bar, maybe go for a traditional bend. If you find that you're going back and forth a lot, using all the hand positions you can, well, then you might want to go with something more like the bio bend or an anatomical bend. Now with all bars, there's a number of different features to consider, right? We touched on them earlier. Talk about reach, flare. These depend on application. When we're talking about a more traditional bar, like the Evo curve, like the neoclassic, these are bars that are probably best suited for pure road application or even cyclocross racing application, where you need just a pretty traditional setup of a handlebar. If you're going to be doing more gravel racing, you might want to consider a bar that has a little bit of flair to it, and a bar that might have a few more options, especially if you're doing longer off-road rides. For something like a mixed terrain ride, something like our Ergo Max, which has a little bit of rise to it, while maintaining the same drop as you would with a bar that doesn't have rise, it also has a little bit of flair, So you get nice forearm clearance. It has an ergo aero top, nice and comfortable. A little bit of flare out. This is a bar that has a number of applications for mixed terrain use. That isn't to say that a bar like our Beacon wouldn't also be applicable for mixed terrain use. It has a very short, reach-wise, shallow drop, so it keeps the controls really close to the clamping point of your stem. This might be a bar that's a little bit better for more technical riding, and also a bar for longer rides. That has to do with hand positions. When you're talking about hand fatigue, especially for mixed terrain use, something like this bar that gives you a lot of options is probably the way to go. Now that we've gone over bar shape and application, I want to go over materials, alloy versus carbon. All of our alloy bars are designed to be as lightweight as the material allows. So from comp to WCS, we want to make sure that we're providing the strongest, lightest bar that material will produce. WCS alloy will produce a lighter bar than our comp alloy bar, while both being just as strong. Carbon will produce probably the lightest bar that we're able to offer, either in WCS Carbon or in Superlogic. Now the benefits of going with a carbon bar are it'll be lighter, it'll be just as stiff as the alloy bar. However, due to the nature of the material, it'll be a bit more resilient and noise dampening. So a carbon bar really does have more benefits than just being lighter. However, price point might be a factor that prohibits you from buying carbon. Now with our alloy bars, they're triple butted in construction, which means that we try to get them to perform as close to our carbon bars as possible, while also being able to be relatively accessible to the end consumer. Now with all of these features in mind, when choosing a handlebar, the most important thing you can do, if you're able to, is to go to your local bike shop. Put them in your hands, feel them out. Maybe there's a demo bike on the floor and you can take it for a test ride and feel all of the different parts of the handlebar. Say, this works for me or this doesn't. With a little bit of searching, you'll find your perfect handlebar.